The rally before the march, people probably noticed the feeder march that joined us today. It's with pleasure that I invite Tim Padmore to speak on behalf of Kirtley's campaign against climate change, who were protesting today against the first 100 days of Trump. Now, it seems like 100 years since that man was elected, 100 days, and the carnage that he's wanting to create. Tim will speak on that issue. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nick, and thank you to the organisers for inviting me to speak to you this morning. Today's a big day for two reasons. Firstly, because across the world, May Day rallies will be taking place to promote workers' rights, solidarity and campaigns, be they on workers' rights, on pay, on conditions or issues like this one, the NHS. But it's also a really important day because today Donald Trump's first 100 days in office will be marked by protests across the world, including a huge march for climate justice and jobs in Washington. They'll be marching in protest against Trump's racism, his sexism, his corporate cronyism, his militarism, his climate denial, and yes, his attack on the healthcare system such as it is in America. And we are marching across the world in solidarity with America as they deal with those struggles to deal with those problems and those issues. A group of us, as Nick said earlier, marched in Huddersfield, and I was really pleased to have the people who joined us to take part in that event. Not just to talk about climate change, but also racism, women's rights, and issues to do with corporate cronyism and the NHS. It was really important for us that we feed into this march. Why? What's the connection? Well, firstly, many of the people marching in Washington in a few hours' time will be doctors, nurses, and healthcare campaigners, just like you, who are marching against Trump's plans to scrap what healthcare there is in America. But there's more than that. All climate change campaigners are very keenly aware that climate change and human health are very, very closely linked. Climate change threatens health through heat waves, flooding, advances in diseases like Lyme disease, Zika, or West Nile virus. Indeed, 2 years ago, the Lancet Commission said that climate change threatens to reverse 50 years of advances in public health in this country and elsewhere. 1 year ago, the UK Health Alliance on Climate Change, which is a body representing 15 organisations, including 7 Royal Colleges of Medicine and the BMA, warned that the British health system was unprepared for the devastating effects of climate change. That's the bad news. The good news is that the solutions are out there, and wherever solutions are found for environmental crises, actually they have phenomenally positive impacts on human health. I'll just give you 2 examples. You might be aware that this week in the news, this government is being dragged kicking and screaming by the legal system into acting on air pollution. We need to act on air pollution for environmental reasons. We must act on air pollution to actually address our climate change targets. And that means more electrification of cars, that means better use of public transport and also safer and cleaner public transport. But here's the benefit. It doesn't just save the planet, it saves 40,000 people who are dying in this country every single year prematurely as a result of primarily traffic-related air pollution. I'll give you another one. If we want to address climate change, we have got to do something about our inefficient homes and the people who are living in fuel poverty. If we address that issue, yes, we will reduce our carbon emissions, but we'll do something else as well. We will save the lives of between 7,000 and 10,000 people who are dying prematurely every single winter because they are living in cold homes. And you know what they are? They're our most poor, our most vulnerable, and the elderly. Fuel poverty is also costing the NHS £1.3 billion every single year. So yes, we need environmental action, but yes, we also need action for people's health. The two tie together. But just as I'm saying these things to you, it's also very important to say to people who are involved in environmental campaigning that if you're concerned about air pollution or fuel poverty or advancing diseases or extreme weather, we need an NHS which is strong, which is functional, and which is very well funded. And unfortunately, we have an NHS which is increasingly becoming weak, dysfunctional, and inadequately funded. The NHS and social care are creaking under the strain. And there's another parallel, because since 2015, renewable energy and energy efficiency measures haven't been advanced, they've been cut, they've been undermined, they've been withdrawn, and they've been hit by tax hikes. And just like people campaigning on health, people campaigning on environmental issues see tax giveaways for the rich, for corporations, and for fossil fuel companies. It's not about the money, it's about priorities, and it's about the narrative that you create to justify those priorities. Well, our job is to challenge those priorities and to present an alternative narrative of a fairer, just, sustainable, and yes, healthier future. There's one last connection I'd like to make between what you're doing and what's happening in Washington and around the world today, and that's this. Over the last 100 days, Donald Trump has faced unprecedented resistance in the courts, in Congress, and on the streets. And several of his flagship policies have, at least for the time being, run into difficulties. The Muslim ban, Obamacare with repeal, and the war with Mexico. There's also, of course, been parallel resistance to racism, to sexism, to austerity, to the attack on the NHS and the fossil fuel economy here in the United Kingdom. I would like to salute Huddersfield TUC for their long-standing organising on many issues and campaigns. And I would like to salute anyone, including all of you, who has supported the Hands Off HRI campaign since its inception. Thank you for all the time, thought and energy that you have put in, whether it's been big or small, high profile or low profile. You've organised, you've raised funds, you've applied pressure. Subject to funding, you will mount a legal challenge, and I'm hoping you'll win. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tim. We've just got two more speakers. The next speaker I think is really important.